In this episode, we are going to be covering the basics of SSH, and when you're doing SSH, you also have to cover, of course, SFTP, SCP for copying files to your server, and I'm going to show you a tool called Git FTP, which you can use to push the changes in your Git repository to the server via SFTP, FTP, or some other protocol. So of course, to do all of this, we would need a server, and I'm going to go to DigitalOcean and create a droplet for us so that I can show you by example. So create a droplet. This is $5 a month, and you can always kill your droplets, then you don't have to pay anything and so on. So I'm just going to use Ubuntu. We are going to take this lower pricing option, so $5 a month. And I'm also going to create my server in Amsterdam because I'm in Croatia, so that's closer to me, or maybe even Frankfurt, that's even closer. So there, I'm not going to add my SSH keys just yet, and right here I'm going to just choose a name, so watch learn SSH, and now I'm going to create a droplet for us. So it's technically a server, so I'm creating this on DigitalOcean, but you can use all of these techniques with most of hosting providers out there. So whenever you are hosting your site, you will be able to use SSH. On some hosting providers, SSH access will come automatically to you, but on others, you would probably have to just open up a ticket and say, hello guys, can you please enable me access to SSH. So, but for now, I'm going to use DigitalOcean, which comes with SSH right away. And as you can see right here, there was a mail that I got from DigitalOcean, and in that mail you will have all of the data that you need to access the server. And that mail looks something like this. So your new droplet is all set to go, droplet name, and then you get this IP address, your username, which is always going to be root, and your password. So I'm just going to copy that password right away. Copy it. Now, of course, if you're on Linux or Mac OS, you will get SSH out of the box. But if you're not, if you're on Windows, I really can't help you there. So please check out some online tutorials on how to get started with SSH on Windows. I know that, I don't know, it was 2005, 2006, when I was still working on Windows, we used to use this program called Puri, I think, and it was so complicated, so generating those keys and everything. So but with Linux machines you get SSH out of the box, and also maybe in Windows, Windows now has this Ubuntu Bash or something like that, and Git Bash, so maybe you can use SSH with that. I'm not sure, so just search Google for it. Okay, so how do we connect to that server? So what I would do, right here I have my terminal, and now we are just going to SSH into our server. So to do that, you would just do SSH root, so your username at 46 101 162 and 226. Okay. Yes. And now it's asking us for password. I already pasted the password because it's too long. And now what it's going to ask you is to change the password. So first of all, it's going to ask you for your current password, and I'm going to say it's this. And now I'm going to set, oh come on, it didn't work. Let's try it again. So this is my password. Okay, let's try to copy this once more. I don't know what's going on. Okay. Okay, so now it worked. Okay, paste it again. and now enter your new password. Okay, retype it. And now you're on your server. And when you're on your server, you can do everything you would do in your terminal. Well, most everything. So if I do ls, there's nothing here, lsla. So actually lsla. So you can see you have this some sort of hidden files. You have this SSH folder in which we are going to put our keys in, and you can create a directory. So I created a directory called test. So as you can see now, when I do ls, I got test right here. I can cd into test, and I can create a file in here. Okay, so I have this file right here, and that's it. This is the way you would connect to your server. Now, what we are going to do right now is create our SSH keys, and then we can connect to our server, but without using the password, and it's much more secure way. So you would create a key which you would put on the server, and whenever you are trying to access the server from your machine, the machine is going to recognize you, and it won't even ask you for password. So now let's create our SSH keys. You would just do SSH keygen. And that's it. I'm not going to press enter right here because I already have my SSH keys. But if I go to my server right now and do that here, SSH keygen, now it's going to give. So this is the same thing that would happen on your local machine. You always run this on your local machine, but I'm running it on the server just to show it what it looks like. So enter file in which you want to save it. You would always want to leave this to be ID RSA. You can add a passphrase if you want. If you don't want, that's also okay. And that's it. This is your keys created. Okay, so to exit out of the server, you just do exit. Now, this still won't work because we have to add our public key to the server. So how do we do that? Well, you do that with a tool called SSH copy ID. I just want to talk a little bit about it. So new macOS, at least this guy says, let me just see it. It says that SSH copy ID is currently installed by default on macOS. That wasn't the case before. So if you have older version of macOS or Mac OS 10, then you would either need to do it with Homebrew. So brew install SSH copy ID to install SSH copy ID, or do something like this, and so on. So just check this page out, and the guys here will explain how you can get SSH copy ID on your Mac. With your Linux, I think all of Linux distributions come with SSH copy ID by default. So we want to copy our ID to our server. So how do we do that? So I'm just going to go here, and I'm just going to do SSH copy ID, and I'm just going to change this IP address. So our IP address is 46.101.162. Okay, so now we are going to copy our public key to our server. Just one more thing before we go on. Of course, if you're on shared hosting or some other hosting with a domain name, so you have a domain for your site, yoursite.com or something like that, then you don't have to write this IP address, but you would write something like yoursite.com or whatever your domain is. So we copy it, and now it's going to ask us for the password. This is the last time it's going to ask us for a password. And that's it. And now if I want to connect to my SSH, I would just do this. So SSH root, my domain name, and that's it. As you can see, no password was asked of me, nothing. Okay, now we are going to exit out of our server. And I'm going to show you how you can copy files using something called SCP to your server. So SCP stands for Secure Copy or Secure Copy Protocol, and this is all based on SSH. And SSH actually stands for Secure Shell. I think I didn't mention that before. So I'm just going to create a directory here, call it SSH, cd into it. Okay, and now I'm just going to create a file. Okay, so I have a file called about.html right here. So how do I copy it to my server? So what you would do, you would use SCP for that, and you do just SCP. Then you wanna say which file do you wanna copy. So in our case, it is going to be about.html, and then you do root @ and our IP address. Okay, and now you want to say where do you want to copy it. So we created a directory called test on our machine, on our server. So I'm just going to copy it to the test directory. And as you can see, we get about HTML, 100% is copied. And if we go to our server once again, cd into test, ls, as you can see, now we have about.html and index.html. Okay, so let's exit out and try to get this index.html from the server to our machine. So to do that, you would just do SCP again. So you do SCP root @ so from our IP address, and now we want to get the file called test index.html. And we want to copy it right here. So we just use a dot. And as you can see, this file has been copied. If I do ls, now we have about.html and index.html right here. Of course, if you don't want to do all of that via console, you can also use a program. I'm using Forklift here, but you have many FTP programs for Windows, Linux, macOS, so use whichever one you want. But remember, always try to use SFTP protocol. It's actually SSH file transfer protocol. So it's much more secure than using just normal FTP. Actually, try not to use FTP ever. So if there is slightest chance that you can either use SSH, SCP or SFTP, please use that instead of FTP. Of course, use it if you don't have any other options. So I'm just going to create a connection to my server from here. So I'm going to call it DigitalOcean. It's going to be in favor. It's the protocol, so you can choose multiple protocols. So you have FTP, TLS, and so on. So SFTP, and we are going to just copy out our server. So it's going to be this. The root is going to be our username, and for password we are not going to be using anything. So this should be 46. Of course, if you didn't set up your SSH keys, then you need a password right here. So you would write password here. But if you have SSH keys, then you don't need a password. Save it. And now if I just double click on DigitalOcean, as you can see, I'm in my DigitalOcean right now. So this is our test directory with about.html, index.html. I can copy files from here, delete files. So I can delete this file right here, right? I can copy it back and forth and so on. So you can use a program like this, but remember, try not to use FTP whenever that is possible. So I just want to show you one more thing, and it's called Git FTP. So it's called FTP, but you can use SFTP protocols with it. please check out this page and see how you can install it. So you have this installation instructions right here. So it's different for Linux systems, Mac OS and Windows. So check this out and install it on your machine. So what Git FTP does is, so let's say you're a developer, you want to use modern techniques, you set up your project and you initialize Git. Now you develop it and you want to push it to the server. If you're using shared hosting, chances are that you won't have Git on it. So what you need to do, you need to use SFTP or something like that to transfer your files over. But of course that can be a bit tedious because you always have to check which files you changed, then you copy those files or you copy everything, and it's a mess. So you can use Git FTP, which is going to connect to the Git, and whenever you do Git FTP push, it's just going to push the newest files or the changed files to your server. So I'm just going to show you how that works. So first of all, I'm just going to go right here in my SSH directory, and actually I'm going to connect to my server first and create a directory called website. Okay, now we have that directory and I'm just going to exit out so that we have it present. Next thing you need to do, you need to initialize Git. So I'm just going to do git init, right? And now we have an empty Git repository. We can add all of the files in it, add everything, and commit our first commit. So git. Okay, of course, if you don't know anything about Git, refer back to my episode where we cover Git for front-end developers. I'm going to leave a link in the cards. So it's going to be right here somewhere when you're watching this video. Okay, so now we have Git set up. Now we need to have configure our Git to work with our server. So to do that, you would just do git config. You can copy it from here. So git config, and you need to set up your URL and so on. So git config git FTP URL. It's going to be SFTP, not FTP in our case. So SFTP, and we are of course going to use our IP address right here, and I screwed something up. Okay, never mind. Actually, I will show you something else here. So, okay, we didn't set this up properly, but I can show you how you can change it. Next thing, we need to set up a user. So I'm just going to copy this. And so git config git FTP user, and the user is going to be root. And one more thing we need to set up is SSH keys. So because we are not going to use password, and as you can see right here, it says you can set password. We are not using a password, but you can config it with this. So I'm just going to paste this in. So git config git FTP.key, and then you do this sign. So this is your home directory, SSH ID RSA. So this is the file when you were creating your SSH keys. This is the file that contains your public key. Okay, press enter. And as I said, this isn't going to work because we didn't set up this correctly. But what you can do, I'm going to use forklift here. And as you can see, I have this Git directory, hidden directory right here. And if you go here to config, you can just open it in Sublime like I did right here. And now you can change these settings. So it should be SFTP, our IP address, and then just this and tilde. Tilde is representing your home directory, and we are not going to push this into public HTML, but website that we created before. Okay, save this. And now if everything is okay, so the first time you run Git FTP, so the first time you want to push the files to your server, you have to do Git FTP init. And as you can see, our files are buffered for upload, and it's uploading them. So if I go to my with SSH to my server, actually, why are we using SSH right now? We can just do something like this. So I can open up Forklift, go right here, refresh this. And as you can see, I have a website directory right here. If I click it, we got about HTML and index HTML in it. So we pushed those files. So if I do something like Sublime index.html, do some changes in it, save it, go git add, git commit. So this is going to be our second commit. And now I don't use Git FTP init, but I just use Git FTP push, right? So before I do that, I just want to show you something. So if I go to my server and go to index.html file, open it up in Sublime, as you can see, the file is empty. But if I do Git FTP push, now, as you can see, Git FTP knows which files were changed because of Git. So it's buffering only one file for upload. And now it's deploying it to our server. And if we do Forklift again, open this up in Sublime. Right now, as you can see, the changes have been made. So this is a very, very good tool if you don't have Git deployment in your workflow. So you want to push something to the remote shared server which doesn't have a Git, you can still use Git and you can push all of your changes with Git to the server. Of course, Git FTP is going to respect your git ignore files and everything else that Git provides. Okay guys, this has been it for this video and probably for this series. I may do one more video about basic frontend tools, tips and tricks, something like that, but that is going to come later on. So this series is currently finished. We covered some topics. I hope they helped you. Please, if you want to ask me questions, you can do that via Facebook, GitHub, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you like my channel, please subscribe to it. And also, if you want to send some money my way, you can of course use the Patreon page for that. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video.